So, for those of you who don't know me, my name's Marcia Philbin. I am the Chief Executive of the Faculty of Pharmaceutical Medicine, and I'll be hosting this fireside chat alongside my colleague, Dr. John Indigam, who is the chair of the EDI Forum, and John is a pharmaceutical physician. As you know, October, and can I just say, I know we've got a few Americans as well as Lamont on the call. So just say hi, welcome. And you may not know, but in the UK, October is Black History Month. And I wanted to, when I learned about Lamont and his journey and his story and the great work that he was doing, I wanted to invite him to this fireside chat, and he kindly accepted. And Lamont is developing and implementing the inclusion and diversity strategy for GSK's global business. So we'll hear more about that throughout the chat. And we will speak for about 30 minutes, and then we'll have 30 to 40 minutes, and then there'll be time for questions and answers. So we look forward to this. So without further ado, hello, Lamont. And like me, you've got a degree and a PhD in chemistry. So could you tell us why you studied the subject chemistry? I studied it because I just like science.
And actually, I'm probably very much like yourself. So actually, my first love was math. I mean, I just really just love math. That's probably the first thing you learn when you're little, right? And just trying to understand how math, just everything connect. But then probably for me in chemistry, I knew I wanted to be a scientist. So I always knew that, even when I was very little. And probably it was in high school where it probably became clear chemistry was probably going to be where I go versus biology or physics. So I took all three in high school. And chemistry really just kind of resonated with me. Then people that know me from the U.S. know I have a lot of chemists in my family. So I have to say that I definitely had a family influence on me in going into chemistry. So that's probably really why, just my natural love for science. And then when I had to make a decision on which science to do, because as you know, science is so broad, the chemistry was just front and center in my life most of the time. Therefore, it was a natural progression for me to go into chemistry.
Oh, thank you. And when I was at school, I was told that it was ridiculous for me to think about that I could go to university. What was your experience at school and then university?
And kind of like I just alluded to right there, I probably had a different story. I came up around a family of educators, so I always had someone to look up to. So really, I had that internal mentors and things like that really help me know that chemistry or just being a scientist was something that I could do. And really, was probably more or less of a question: am I going to go to college, but where I'm going to go to college, because I knew I was going to do that. I spent probably 2 summers of my high school actually on a college campus. So once again, getting immersed in really understanding exactly, what it is to be a scientist. So I probably pretty early on, I knew I was going to be a scientist. And then I grew up in Mississippi, so that's and we studied Black History Month in the UK. So that's really, I tell people, it was a black and white world. So grew up in a predominantly, it's the southern part of the United States for those in the UK. So a predominantly white town, probably 75-25. So I lived in a black neighborhood, but the school was probably 75% white. But I was always the exception coming through school. So probably one of only. So I learned very early in life that you may be one of only, and that followed me throughout. So I think early on, really learning how to live in both worlds, living how to be able to live in my neighborhood where I felt comfortable, but also going to school and then learning how to, I guess, probably fit in at the time so that I didn't feel different. So then I left Mississippi, and really this is probably my first chance where I had to make a real big decision. So I went to the Naval Academy actually, because my counselor at the time in high school had a military background. So through his influence, I probably went to the Naval Academy, but I hated it. because my parents never really gave me discipline. As long as I did well in school, then I got to do what I wanted to do. But at the Naval Academy, it didn't matter how well you did. They just want to me break it down and then build you back up. So then that was the first time that I actually had to quit something. So I had to call my parents and say, hey, you know what? This is not for me. I just can't continue here because I just wasn't happy. So it probably took a lot of courage at the time.
How long did it take?
Just for the summer. So normally you graduate high school in May. So then the plebe summer it calls. So that's that summer I did. So I guess 3 months. So it just wasn't for me as an individual. But then, at 18 now I had to make a decision. Do you continue or do you quit? And some people probably called me a quitter, but it just wasn't for me. So then I left. And I'm glad I did, because then I went to Texas Southern University, which is a historical black college university in the U.S. And really, that's where I learned that people are going to see you as an African American first, right? And I'm glad I went there, because in high school I always was the exception. I always, people I felt treated me as them. But when I left that comfort area and then went to another city who no one knew me, it quickly became, when people saw me, they saw me as an African American male. So really, I think that really instilled to me that you have to always, you can't forget that. And there are challenges by being an African American male. So I graduated, went to Michigan State University, got my PhD in organic chemistry. Once again, still debating, do I do academics? Do I do industry? I love teaching. People were surprised actually when I decided to go into industry. They pegged me as a professor. So then I got my PhD. Then I went to Michigan, Stanford for my postdoc. And once again, that's another. I'm glad I did that as well, because that gave me an opportunity to leave Michigan State, then go to Stanford, where now I left a group of probably 4 or 5 in my group to a group of 50. So I had 50 students and 1 professor, so 25 postdoc and 25 grad students. And there, you can just imagine, everybody wanted to see how smart you are. And I quickly realized I could still be myself, easygoing, enjoying sports, but I haven't always just pump my chest and show someone how smart I am. So I think that really helped me. So when I got my job in GSK, I knew I could be myself. I didn't have to always be trying to show that I'm the smartest person. So that's just my journey on how, coming from an area where I grew up being black and white, and then now to where go to HBCU, go to a predominantly white institution, then go to Stanford, and then now coming to GSK. And I tell people it's no accident I'm doing this job today. I think it's because of my life experiences.
Yeah.
That make me pretty good at what I do today.
Fantastic. And I bet your parents were proud of you when you went to university. I mean, you come from a family of educators, so
like I said, I mean, very proud. I mean, proud to the point to where I also love sports. But my parents never saw me do anything sport-wise. So, never saw me play basketball. Never saw me run track, because I think they realized education would be the way, probably more likely would be my avenue out. And therefore, they always supported me. If I drove 3 hours or something education-wise, they would do it. Yeah. So very much so. So my parents have always supported me, traveled with me, even to this day. Like if I need them to come watch the kids, which I'm going on a conference next week, they're flying to Philadelphia to keep the kids for me, because they realize they do anything. They support me as much as they can, so that I can do what I need to do to make the world better.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Lamont, and for sharing your journey as well. I'm saddened to hear about this point that you reached in your journey where you realize that actually the world at large perceives you as an African American first, and you seem to have gone through that aspect of your life, navigated it adroitly. So, that's inspiring. I understand that after university, you pursued a career as a medicinal chemist. For the audience and for me as well, could you just let us expand on what medicinal chemistry is and why it appealed to you as a career?
Yeah, so probably like most African Americans, either minorities, I went to school as pre-med, actually. So this goes back to undergrad. So I went as a pre-med major, because growing up, you want to be a physician. So then my advisor at the time said, you know what, I'm going to change your major to chemistry and math. So that's how I became a chemistry and math major. So then probably I think it was either my sophomore summer or either my freshman summer, I went to Purdue University for a summer program. And then Eli Lilly came down and a scientist gave a talk, a medicinal chemist gave a talk, and the light bulb went off. Because then now that's a career that I love making things. I love using my hands. I love just being creative. So then as a medicinal chemist, I have to now use organic chemistry, which is my training, to design a molecule to have some biological impact on a biological target. So that's what, to me, as a synthetic organic chemist, is all about designing some entity to infect some biological target of interest. So, and then that, to me, brought together my passion for health, which I always have, but really that creative as a scientist is
Interesting.
It just, I knew then that's the career that I want.
Is that related to orthomolecular chemistry? Someone won the Nobel Prize for that recently.
It could be. So I think, so to me, medicinal chemistry brings in many different areas of science, right? So I am the medicinal chemist. I am the chemist that makes a molecule, but then I have biologists that I have to speak with. I have physicians that we have to work with. So it's probably a group of, I don't know, 6 or 7 different type of scientists are on the team with the goal of getting, for me, it was a small molecule to the patient.
That's really interesting because it sounds fascinating. Because I remember discussing this with a few years ago with a colleague about how they're testing molecules in space to do with translational medicine, and so it seems fascinating, right? I mean, I can see why it appealed to you, but then I'm also interested in how tough it must have been to move away from that, right? So we understand that you're leading GSK's EDI strategy for global business.
Yes.
Okay, so you're in this exciting space. You've joined Eli Lilly. You're doing well at GSK as a scientist as well. And I understand from reading a bit about your background, you reached the crossroads and a mentor of yours said, listen, you can either be a scientific leader or a bridge builder. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yes, because that was probably the point to where it became clear I had to make a decision. So that leader actually was my manager, and he gave me the opportunity to do both. Even as a scientist, I was able to lead science teams and then at the same time do what I do now for the chemistry space. But then even more broadly, I began to impact R&D. And it became clear that, some of the time that quickness that you need to be a scientist, if someone walk up to you and say, hey, Lamont, I have a problem, and then let's talk about it. I was probably maybe a half a second slower than I normally was, just because I now had to turn off the outreach, thinking about infrastructural changes, and now let me get back to the hardcore sciences. And then he said, you know what, you can do either, and you're great at it. But you know what, you're something about you that's special right now. And this is even before the George Floyd movement. So this is probably 2016, 2017. So I was early on, I made this decision to make the switch. You have the respect in the science, in the business. Everyone respects you as a scientist. HR, human resources, listen to you, right? You have great ideas, and the business wants to get behind you, or either the company wants to do more in this space. So now is the perfect opportunity for you to now really grow into this space. So I had 2 leaders. So I had him, but then also I had a sponsor said, you can do more. He always challenged me every time, you can do more, Lamont, you can do more, you can do more. So then with those 2 things, I said, well, now I will do more. And I stepped out, and I loved it really, because then now, yes, I'm not doing science, but I have the opportunity to meet a lot of different sciences and really just try to change society so that more people like myself have the opportunity to experience science the way that I experienced it. So that's kind of how I reconcile with my passion for science with my passion for really trying to change society. And actually just was today is Thursday. Tuesday, our head of R&D just gave a talk about his priorities for the research organization. I felt like, man, you know what? I can go back. Because just hearing the science and hearing him talking about it.
You do miss chemistry a little bit.
It's just talking about science sometimes, right? Just hearing, just talking about pure science. I'm like, man, it got me. But I'm happy doing this. But for that moment, like, you know what? That is great stuff. So I still think about it. And luckily enough, the company allows me to still have the opportunities to interface with science as much as I want.
And can you give us examples of a couple of incidents or occasions when you've realized that you're on path? Because here in the UK, the Royal Society of Chemistry has shone a light on the fact that there's a disproportionate underrepresentation of Black scientists in particular, and they're spearheading efforts such as the Broadening Horizons program. Now, what you're doing is, I'm guessing it's not easy. So are there any pivotal moments that have led you to realize that you're doing the right thing? And what can we learn from what you've achieved?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's always just trying to find those small wins, right? Because this is a huge societal challenge. So it's not going to happen overnight. So things even like the broad horizon in chemistry, right? To me, it's good to partner with external organizations that has done the research and are beginning to publicly uncover some of the systematic challenges that minorities have. And to me, in GSK and every company should do their part, realizing those challenges that minorities face doesn't start when you enter the door in GSK or any other company that you work for, right? It starts way sooner in this someone's journey. So to me, it's all about finding those opportunities to try to really have true change and true impact. And therefore, things like the Broad Horizon chemistry, now individuals that's on that program have the opportunity to actually see someone that look like them and say, you know what, this is what you can do with your degree. A lot of times I have noticed over my time in this space, it's awareness sometimes. Students are just not aware of all that they could do with their science degree. You know, they're limited by what they see on television, what they hear on the radio, but really seeing someone and say, you know what, this is what I did with my degree. And you can do a lot more with it because really it's all about being trained as a thinker. As long as you can think, you can do pretty much anything. So I think it's just finding those small wins, finding opportunities to partner with organizations like the Royal Society of Chemistry to do our part or to do my part and really trying to make a change.
That's really fantastic. Thank you. And so you celebrate the small wins. And what I like in particular is that you established your credibility as a thinker. And I think that's really important for someone like me who's still very, early in my career, and for people who are thinking of pursuing this EDI journey, because obviously GSK spotted you as a talented thinker, and then they brought you on board their program.
Yeah, and to me, I think that's what I tell everyone. You have to do what they hired you for well.
Okay.
They hired me as a chemist. I am a pretty good chemist. I tell people all the time, I still feel that way. And I felt that way when I joined the company. And you do that well. And then now by showing that I am a great scientist, right? But also I can think differently or I have different ideas. And then you can begin to do other things in the organization. But first, you have to do what the organization hired you for. Do it well. And at the same time, say, you brought me in to do this, but look what else I'm giving you.
So you build your career capital. You build the career capital, and then that can be leveraged to expand your portfolio. That's really useful advice. Thank you so much. Marcia, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, thank you. And what I liked, I made a note here, Lamont, you gained the respect. You were listened to. And then you had the sponsors, your company behind you to support you and help you drive and do those initiatives. So that's really, really great advice. Another one of your incredible achievements was that in 2022, you were the first African American to be elected to chair the Association of Chemical Sciences Organic Chemistry Division, which is 110 years old. How did you feel when the result was announced?
Even you saying it, I still get goosebumps, right? Because really it is a great achievement. Actually, I didn't even realize it, right? Because always I just do what I need to do. And then I probably felt like proud, like, wow, yes, you have something to be proud about in 2022. And then probably quickly, I probably thought about, I can't fail now. Right. Because now, I'm the first and therefore I got to make sure I do a good job being the first. Otherwise, they may not hire someone else. And then I quickly said, no, I can't think that way. And it's once again, from a leader in the organization, we were having a conversation once and he said, and then I told him a lot of times that I felt as if I had to always be perfect because as an African-American male, and a very small number in the company, if I did not do well, Therefore, it'd be harder for someone else behind me to get the opportunity because, hey, we had someone great, Lamont, and he didn't succeed. Therefore, why try? So then I had to tell myself I can't put that pressure on myself. They said, no, well, Lamont, I don't never feel as if I have to live off every white male. Just not something that I think about. But I think as a minority, sometimes by being the first or very limited, you put that pressure on yourself. So I took it in. Yes, it's a great achievement. And quickly to myself, do not put that pressure that you have to, that I cannot fail, because that's not true, right? I just have to do the best that I can in the role. And then I probably realized at the same time there's a lot more that need to get done.
Mm, mm.
Right. It's a
And you know what?
110-year-old
Just listen.
organization.
Yeah. It's interesting listening to that, right? I was just thinking, we will reach true equality when it doesn't matter who you are. If you fail, you fail. And it's the person, not the race.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, correct. Right. And then people of minorities feeling as if they don't have to feel that way, because we just naturally think if I fail, it's because it's my race, not nothing to do with me and any other of my demographics.
Yeah.
Fantastic. That's brilliant, actually. Which brings us on to the next question, which is, I suppose, a philosophical question. Do you believe that we'll ever get to the stage where everyone will have equal access to opportunity? And actually, coming off the back of what Marcia said, will we get to the stage where everyone has equity of perception? Or actually, having failed, you're seen as a human being first? I know it's philosophical because it was part of Martin Luther King's dream, and it's what Obama said about the arc of justice and all of this. But do you think, with number one, are we moving in the right direction? And number two, are we going to get to the promised land collectively?
You know what? I'm glad you put it that way, because actually I was just in Memphis about 3 weeks ago, and I went to the hotel where Martin Luther King was actually assassinated at. And actually, it's a very powerful place to be there, right? And that's my first time going there. And to that question, I think it depends upon if you put a time stamp on it. If you told me in the next 10 years, I would probably say no. We have a ways to go. So we're making progress. But like I said, this is a societal challenge that we have to begin to, like we're doing now, having these conversations. We need to have more people that's on the sidelines into the conversation. So those from the majority. So I hope so. I think I would love to where a role like mine is no longer needed in the organization. So I'm working to, make myself obsolete. But I think I could do this for another 20 or 30 years and still, unfortunately, probably have work to do. Because,
and it's a good point to. Sorry, continue. Sorry.
No. Because I think it's just that big. This is a huge. I tell people this is something it's not nothing new, right? This is a challenge that's been with us for a while, and we haven't made progress as a society.
Okay.
Optimistic.
So we're making progress. Great. Sorry, what was that?
I said optimistic that we are making progress.
You are optimistic that we're making progress. So if we speak more precisely, more specifically, say perhaps three main obstacles that organizations face to have more equitable access to opportunity and jobs and treatment, not just for Black and people of color, but for women as well. What would you say the three main obstacles are that you've seen in your work to date?
I think as far as one obstacle probably would be access, right? If you just think about if we're looking for talent, right? And I mean, as an organization, we need more individuals in the pipeline. And therefore, you have to go further back. How can we ensure that anyone has the access to STEM? And that's not the same, right? We know there's challenges with that. Probably health equity. I often tell this story that when the pandemic first came out, when I first got my first COVID shot, it's 5 minutes from my house. No problem. And then for my second shot, a week before, they changed the location to about 20 miles away. So for me, that's no problem. I just get in the car and then I drive over and get the booster shot or either the second dose. But for some people, though, it's not that easy. So now access, right? They don't have the ability to get to where they need to get to. So to me, access would probably be one that I definitely think we need to do better at. And also probably just awareness of our biases. We all have biases as a society, and really accepting that, yes, I have privileges as a Black male, African-American male, as I stated earlier, I came up through an educated family. Therefore, that's a privilege. My education that I have gotten through school, that's a privilege. So that now, compared to some others, not even ethnic or gender wise, I have privileges that some people that don't have the education that I have. So probably would be recognizing that we have biases, and then in those biases, things come out of that, the access, and probably the other one was just really realizing this is a long journey, right? We can't always expect change to happen overnight, because I think the fear was, even when the George Floyd incident happened and then all the movement and stuff, the Black Lives Movement, that it was probably going to go back to normal. I'm glad it did not go back to normal, where people be upset, protest about it, share their frustrations, but then they'll go back to society. But we haven't yet, right? I think still there's this momentum, that's movement across society, that more needs to be done in the EDI space or DEI space, depending upon what side of the Atlantic that you're on. So I think that would probably be the last one. Just thinking about it now.
That's great. Thank you. And sounds like you've had a lot of role models. Your parents were obviously your first role models. By the sounds of it, your classmates were very supportive of you, and they treated you as a human being first. Obviously, they were supportive. And then you had this mentor who identified your talent and helped to guide you. But if you could pick one person, apart from your parents, who's had a tremendous influence in your life, who would you say is there such a person in your life?
Yeah, and it's easy. So this is quite easy for me. So it's my uncle. So my uncle also is a family member, but he's not my, he's not my parents, but he has a tremendous influence on me. He's a chemist as well. I often think that if he was able to succeed in Mississippi in the 40s and 50s, when I came out in the 90s, I had no choice but to succeed. That's why for me, it never was a choice of, are you going to succeed? Is how well will you succeed? Because I had that role model I can look up to throughout my whole life and say, hey, if he could do it, then I can do it. Someone that, would be honest with me, challenge me. So to me, it would be my uncle. And really, and what he probably instilled in me, even at a very early age, that you can always be yourself. I never seen him different than an individual from Mississippi. And I'll just leave it at that, right? That's how I saw my uncle. And he rose to pretty high ranks in the academic world.
Really?
So,
wow.
Yeah.
And
so
obviously, go on.
Uncle. It's my uncle.
Was there anything, because I'm trying to think, right? As teenagers, we're torn. We're trying to figure out our identity. When you mentioned that you grew up in Mississippi, I was just thinking, gosh, the deep South back then.
Yes.
And I started having in my head, I could hear the humming of spirituals and the fight and the struggle. And there would have been reason to be angry. You would have been justified, there would have been reason to be angry. By the sounds of it, you had an uncle who said, actually, perhaps that could be the case, but focus on you. Was there a pivotal moment that you remember? Was there a conversation? Was there something that moved you away from what could have been justified, but perhaps may have led you down a different route, and to where you are now? Was there such a moment?
I don't know, but thinking about it, to me, I'm sure there probably was one, because I think probably throughout life, I learned to take that frustration or anger, right, and probably channel it in a positive way, right? Because I probably did grow up with a chip on my shoulder.
Oh, can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now. Yes.
Sorry, my cell phone rang, so
my
apologies. Yeah, so it probably is that I probably grew up with the chip, so I can show people that I can do it. But I probably always just make sure that I channeled it in a positive way. Take that and just work harder.
Thank you. That's really useful. And if I could just ask one more question, if I may, and then Marcy will come on. But I think this will be really valuable. Your response to this. What would you advise young people who may feel frustrated, who may feel angry, who may feel that the solution is to go all guns blazing? How would you advise them to channel that energy into constructive avenues? how would they go about doing that? I mean, is it family support? Is it exercise, going to the gym? Is it a combination of all of these things?
It's probably a combination of all those things. So if I had my team's background, it's the Michigan State basketball arena. So I'm a basketball fanatic. I love basketball. So sports was my avenue to let that frustration go, let that aggression go, right? I could be on a basketball court and be aggressive because you had to be. Otherwise, you will lose. And I hate losing. So I think to me, and people was kind of shocked, like, you're the same person that's in the classroom because you're so easygoing, and you see me on the basketball court, just the opposite, because I let all the frustration out. So I definitely think it is finding that outlet, and then also finding mentors. Really, right? You have to find mentors, people that you could talk to, people that if you can help you. I'm saying how to navigate the situation. Right now, I'm seeing my Michigan State buddy, so Jesse Edwards. Second, can you hear me? All right, I may have to get a call. My daughter called and my wife's called, so we'll see. But I think it's just having someone like that. Like when I came there, right, I had someone that I could talk to. Hey, Jesse, help me out, right? Because when I actually went to Michigan State, I didn't tell this story. My college roommate was going to go with me. So we had it all mapped out. We're going to go together. We're going to go to the grad school together. We got it perfect. Once again, summer before grad school, he changed his mind. Like, nope, I'm not going to Michigan State. I don't like Michigan. I'm going back south. So he went back to Louisiana State University for his graduate degree. And he grew up in Houston. So it just his life, like that was his first time leaving a predominantly Black area and city and going to the north part of the United States. So right away, my view about grad school just changed just like that.
Oh, wow.
But then luckily enough, individual like Jesse was already a grad student there. So then I connected with him, and then he helped me adjust to, coming from an HBCU, which he did, and then coming to a predominantly white institution. So I think having mentors throughout your life is critical, and they come in many different shapes and forms.
That's fascinating. Thank you so much, Lamont, for sharing, for opening up in relation to that. Marcia, I know you've got a couple more questions.
Yeah. So what message would you like attendees to take away from our discussion today, Lamont?
I think it's just that, right? Identify mentors. I mean, some individuals that can help you out. Don't be afraid to go outside your comfort zone. Throughout my life, I had to make those decisions. I am a scientist. I love science, but for me, it was the right decision. I tell people I always have options. To me, option was the best thing throughout my life, right? When I had to make the decision at 18, right, I had options, right? So therefore, yes, I left one institution, but I went to another one because I had options. Even as an undergrad, I had options. I had this idea I wanted to be a physician, but luckily, having a chemistry and math degree, I was able to apply for medical school if I wanted to, apply for engineering school, and then even apply for graduate school. And then talking to individuals throughout my time, I realized, for me, it's the science that really drives me. And therefore, that's the way that I went. So being able to pivot and then being comfortable making that pivot. And probably most important, do things for yourself.
Yeah.
To me, that's the most important thing. You cannot live for anyone else.
No.
So right now, I live for Lamont, and that's it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I have to go to work. I got to be happy doing what I'm doing.
Yeah.
If you don't, you probably can't give your best if you're not living for yourself and really doing what's passionate to you.
Absolutely.
Those are probably the three things that I would share with someone today.
Fantastic. Lamont, thank you so much. I know you've been getting calls. Do you want to take the calls or you have?
No, I'm fine. I'm going to text right now, please. I will.
Okay, then. Okay, just in case it's something. But I just want to thank you for a really, really fantastic and engaging discussion. And I'm going to turn it over to questions, but I might be cheeky and take the first question if you don't mind, because it's something that you said earlier on, and I wanted to pick up on, about change and everything like that. Why was it the George Floyd incident and not the election of Barack Obama that really facilitated the drive in change?
To me, I think.
Or is that a misconception? Is it a misconception? Yeah.
Not misconception. I think it probably there probably was a change with Obama, but then I think that George Floyd really just people just saw the hatred in the individual, right? And just just a blatant, I'm going to take someone else's life.
Yeah.
I think that really just people like I cannot overlook that, right? This is something that's just you can't overlook. I think that's probably why we did not go back to because it's not the first time an African American male has, unfortunately died at the hands of a police officer in the U.S.
Yeah.
But I think just the manner of how it happened.
Yeah, exactly. And we all saw it.
We all saw it. It's all on video.
Yeah.
And I think I think cell phones now are probably a good and a bad thing. My kids have one, probably a bad thing because they want to talk on it all the time.
Yeah.
But at least we was able to capture that moment,
Yeah.
and just realize that like this is it's just not right. So I think that's probably why more people could see it and just see the raw hate. I'm just going to call it. Yeah.
It was. Yeah. Jesse, you want to come on?
Yes. Thank y'all for having me, and they worked this out so I could get onto this event. I really appreciate it. I can tell you, I went to grad school with Lamont, and he mentioned that I mentored him, and I think that's overstated. Lamont, I'm beyond proud of him. Just for the type of person he has become, knowing him coming out of undergrad and seeing how he's led in so many ways. He does stuff with the National Organization of Black Chemists and Chemical Engineers. He's on that board. He's done that all his life. You know what I mean? So that's the type of commitment. His uncle was on that board, right? So it's like bred in him to take this path and lead in this way. I can tell you, I'm almost in tears because Lamont showed me through grad school what it meant to be a graduate student. I didn't know, right? I really did not know. And I saw through his example of dedication to craft. Like these guys are practicing basketball, right? And they're going to the gym and working out and doing all these things at the highest level. That's how Lamont was with his organic chemistry craft. And it really resonated through that entire chemistry department. He helped grow research groups of young African-American students. And so he's done it all his life, in my opinion. And so it's really wonderful to see him do that because he doesn't realize how much I watched and learned, right? Because I didn't know what I was doing. And I watched him and I said, oh, I'm doing this wrong. So it's a wonderful thing to hear him speak. So I did want to congratulate him and tell him so many people. I spoke to Dr. Daniel Nasser, Lamont, and we talked about you. We talked about all the students, right, that came through Michigan State and the impact, that brotherhood, sisterhood that we had in those groups. We would have dinners. We would have tutor sessions on Saturday mornings. And Lamont played a pivotal role in that, right? Like he said, he could always be himself. There was nothing phony, pretentious ever, right? And that goes a long ways in, and how people perceive you, how they accept you, how they follow you. And so I'm very happy to see him speaking today and doing the things that he loves to do. But I'm gonna go to my question. So
yes.
So Lamont, in your role, what I'm thinking, because I didn't realize it was for all of global business, right? Where's the reach begin and end, right? In terms of, like you said, you got to go back, right? And you know how no Bechet, they always go back and they have all the way to, you know, the what they call the science fair type of deal.
Yes.
Where does your reach begin and end, right, to get that pipeline started? Because, you know, I got 50,000 ideas, right? So I'm going to be calling you.
No. So to me, as an organization, so as GSK, our reach is from early K all the way to the end. So my role itself is to bring in talent into the organization. So that's, you know, postgraduates, and just make us more inclusive and diverse. But we have things such as the Philadelphia STEM Equity Collective. So that's GSK's commitment to increase the number of Blacks and Hispanics and females in Philadelphia area in STEM, and that's K through 12 in the U.S., but early education in the UK. So personally, I'm involved with all. So anything that we could do as an organization, I support. I have leaders even like Rohana Sadat, who actually on the call too. So she's my inside to the UK, right? Because I'm based in the US, but really learning from individuals like that, leaders like that. Now, what more can we do in the UK? And we're also beginning to reach a lot earlier. So overall, anywhere I can influence change, I influence change. No limit.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Lamont, there's an old white man, pale, male, stale. He's going to ask you a question. William. The question.
Lamont, first of all, that's what I am. I'm a
William's
late.
a good friend of the faculty.
William wrote that.
I'm a late trustee of the charity, and I had my photograph taken the other day, and I was asked by the person taking it, describe yourself in 3 words. Well, male, pale, and stale pretty much does it. But thank you very much. Just being able to listen to a conversation about your journey, what you've done, and what you're continuing to do is very, very inspiring. I wondered whether not everywhere and not all the time, but something like the Truth and Reconciliation Commission of the sort that existed in South Africa could, with certain adaptations, be used elsewhere in organizations and countries to try and bridge some of the historical rifts. And your response to that sort of idea, I'd be really interested in.
No. So I, as a scientist, I always say, I wish I had a journal for things that did not work. Therefore, I would go read it. Or a journal for best practices. So then now you can, like you just say, take things that have worked in other parts of this of the world and then use it. You may have to adapt it, right, depending upon where you are, the US versus the UK. But I do think we can learn a lot from other efforts that have already happened. So the answer is yes. And I think we should, as a society, really begin to look at what others have done in this space. And then be critical, right? And say, no, what, it worked well, but these are how it could have been done differently. That may have had a different result, and therefore be comfortable trying it. And if it doesn't work, that's okay too, because you learn something from it.
Yeah, that's really helpful. Thank you very much indeed, and thank you once again for your inspirational candid.
Thank you.
Thank you. Right, do we have any more questions for Lamont? Anybody else? Just looking. We've had a really good debate. Nobody else. Well, Lamont, I want to thank you for this wonderful discussion. And again, the things that I've took away, right? You've gained respect, right? You were listened to, and you got your sponsors. Other things that I picked up as well is that about being yourself and be a good thinker, but most importantly, live for yourself. That is so true. Live for yourself and be passionate about what you do, and you will strive and reach heights that you perhaps never would have believed. And you've certainly done that and inspired many, many people. So thank you for taking the time to speak with us. And thank you, everyone, particularly to our friends from across the pond, from the United States. Jesse, thank you for sharing your passionate tribute to Lamont. And, you know, I felt the emotion. I felt the respect and love that you have for Lamont. So thank you for that. And thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was touching. And thank you, Rahana, for making the introductions with Lamont. So, right, we've recorded this. It will be available to review again and to share with your network. So thank you, everyone, for this fireside chat. This was Faculty of Pharmaceutical Medicine. Marcia Philbin, Chief Executive of the organization. John Indigam is the chair of the EDI Forum. Thank you for attending and have a good, well, in the UK, it's in the evening. Lamont, was it afternoon? Is it afternoon?
Lunchtime.
It's lunchtime. You go and have some lunch. Yeah, and go. I hope your son's okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Thank you, everyone.
All the best. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye. Thank you all.